Hi, we have Namita, Gokhale, and Wendell Rodricks in conversation. And the Traveler's Eye will focus on the book Traveling In and Out, where Namita will discuss the unexpectedness of journeys and the theme of the book. And although she doesn't really need an introduction, let me give her an introduction anyway. She's a writer, publisher, and co-director of the Jaipur Literature Festival. Her works include Paro, Dreams of Passion, A Himalayan Love Story, The Book of Shadows, The Book of Shiva, The Habit of Love, and also, most importantly, she is one of the amazing people behind this very festival, Mountain Echoes. To tell you a little bit about Wendell Rodricks, well, it's hard to picture the fashion world without someone like Wendell Rodricks. He's a designer, and he's written for magazines like Apparel, Femina, Vogue, and a lot more. He was awarded the Padma Shri, I pronounced that right, by the President of India this year, the country's 4th highest civilian honor for art, that's fashion design. May I please invite Namita and Mr. Rodricks.
It's a last minute thing.
I'm so sorry, completely forgot. There's a slight change in program. We have the unveiling of the book first. May I request Your Majesty?
Friends, it's a real honor for us today that our book, Traveling In, Traveling Out, which also has an essay by Her Majesty, Queen Mother Ashi, Dorji, Wangmo, and which also Wendell Rodricks has contributed to. So all three of us are co-panelists in the book, and the Queen Mother will very kindly unveil the book, and then we will all talk about travel. Thank you. Travel is the nature of change, and about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I was asked by the publishing house HarperCollins to edit a book on travel, and I started giggling, and I said, I can't think of anybody worse equipped to write a travel book or to edit a travel book than me. I mean, many of you who come here have a sense of travel, a sense of adventure, a sense of new places, whereas me, I'm just about the laziest armchair traveler ever. I travel 4 or 5 times a month, but wherever I go, I just sit in bed, get to the lobby, get to wherever, and for me, the joy of traveling is the joy of meeting new people, usually writers, and new ideas. But it got me intrigued, and so we've written and edited a travel book with a difference. It's called Traveling In, Traveling Out, a book of unexpected journeys. And this book really looks at travel as a process of self-discovery. And many of the essays in this book were actually gathered around here from the Tashi itself. I remember going out and chatting with Ali Sethi, and he gave us an essay in the book. Same with Wendell, so many others. And it was here that I requested Her Majesty, would she think about doing a piece, and she rewrote a complete new piece for us, for the book. So today I want to speak to both of them about their idea of travel. What does travel mean to them? What do they get out of the experience? Especially in a world where everything is available right there on the video screen, on Google. So virtual travel has made the idea of travel redundant in some senses. Somebody was just saying to me that every Taj lobby in the world, as I stepped in, smells exactly the same. So hotel lobbies, why do you go to new hotel lobbies to eat the same food and meet the same sort of tired world travelers? So I will begin first with asking Her Majesty, who has, of course, traveled on state visits around the world, but who also, as in her essay in this book, has traveled deep into the heart of Bhutan under the most difficult circumstances, under the most difficult terrain. Tell us what travel means to you.
Travel for me, and especially in my country, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me because as I travel, and the mode of travel for me is on foot. The years that I started traveling was a long time ago, when there were no car roads, actually, in most of the remote areas in our country. So I chose to walk because of the fact that one must experience, even though for a short time, the real conditions of our people living in the rural areas. So for me, travel means that you get to meet people, our people, and get to interact with them. I get to sit with them, get to talk to them, get to feel with them. So for me, I think that is the most important factor, is to connect with people, connect with their dreams, their aspirations, and to see what I can do to realize some of those dreams. So this is what travel to me means.
And when I asked Wendell, he sent me an email which said that he has been to 140 countries. So I don't know if he's a traveler or a stamp collector. So do tell us about your, I mean, if 140 might take us a bit of time to go through, but if you can go through a little.
No, actually, I realized at some point in my travels that there are about 190 odd countries in the UN, and I made it my business to see all of them before I go. So that's how it started. But I love traveling not only because of the wonderful people that you interact. I like to make it a balance of three things. I like to learn something about the culture, so it's cultural on one level. I like to involve some kind of relaxation, which can be shopping. And talking about the Taj lemon-scented lobby, I must say we have the same in fashion. We call it the blanding of fashion because everything, you go to any Chanel shop in the world, it's the same. And you go to any high street all over the world, you find the same number of shops. The final reason that I like to travel is to also involve some amount of sport in it. So I was very happy when I came to Bhutan and you have to do go up tiger's nest and almost die in the process. And, or like we did archery for the last Mountain Echoes festival. So I'd like to ideally make it a balance between the three. And I think I'm going to say that sometimes travel throws up the most unexpected people in the most unexpected places. I was invited to Sweden for a fashion show, and the gentleman who was arranging the fashion show invited me to his mother's house. And when I went to their house, I found he came from Russian blood, and his wife was speaking in French to the children. But when I excused myself to go to the restroom, I saw a photograph on the mantelpiece. And when I came back, I asked the lady, I said, that person looks like Leo Tolstoy, and since you all have Russian blood, who is this person? And she laughed and she said, that is Leo Tolstoy, he's my grandfather. Oh. So one of the sons of Leo Tolstoy, also called Leo, came to Sweden and married this lady's mother.
But I do want to know is which of the memorable countries you haven't been to yet, since we won't list very yes. List your next 5.
Actually, my next 5 is in the pipeline. In August, I read Alex Rutherford's book series on the Great Moguls. And I told our friend Catherine in Singapore, I said, we should go to these places. So in August, we are doing that. We start off in Mongolia and then go all the way Tashkent, Samarkand, and everywhere that the Great Moguls come from. Which is quite like the journey I did once based on William Dalrymple's book, From the Holy Mountain, where 2 Byzantine monks were sent out to do an inventory of the churches at the time of Byzantium. And William did that in the 70s or the 80s, I think. And we finally found a cruise that stopped at exactly the same places that these monks visited. So that was a very memorable journey.
And Your Majesty, in Bhutan, would tell us your most memorable, I have some idea of which of them you'd say, but which walks, which treks, which visits to a particular shrine, temple, or hometown would you consider that one memory that stands out?
There are many, many memories, Namita, many, but one memory comes to mind. And that's a journey I undertook with 2 ladies, both named the same, Chimi. And we decided that we should go, not with many, many people, but just a very few of us, and that we would carry our own supplies on our backs. And this journey, I think it was very interesting, and also it taught me many lessons. So we went, and the first night after walking for 8-9 hours, we came to a village house. It was dusk by then, and we asked the owner of the house if we could spend the night in his home. So it was wonderful. He shared the hearth with us, and they gave us their temple room to sleep in. And then we moved on. And the next day, the journey was very long, and we didn't come across any houses to take shelter in. So we took shelter under a tree. So we mercifully, it didn't rain. And then onward to the next village, and then again we took shelter in another villager's home. And it was wonderful because we felt as family. The Bhutanese people living in the rural areas are very, very hospitable. And they share whatever they have with you. And then we sat together and we spoke about everything that was happening in their lives and also in the village. And then the next day, something interesting happened. And I was walking up a field, which was very, very steep. And in the middle of the field, there was one lady with all gray hair. So I walked up, and as soon as she saw me, the one thing she did is she lifted me, and put me on her back. And since I'm quite short, I think it was easy for her to do so. But she was a lady with grey hair. And I was taken aback. And literally taken aback. You're absolutely right. So then I asked the lady, why did you pick me on your back? And then she said that I had traveled, she had heard that I had traveled long distances on foot, and she just wanted me to she wanted to carry me a little beyond the greater hill that lay ahead. And I was most grateful to her. And I have to say, she must have been younger than me, because I color my hair. So that was, I thought, let's say, a fine example of somebody's empathy. And of course, we continued our journey thereon, and there were many, many other nights that we had to spend on the way. But I think this journey taught me many, many lessons. In the villages, I found that even though they do not have what people in Thimphu have, I noticed that their level of contentment was absolutely pure. You could see it in their smiles, but most evidently, you could see it in their eyes. So that was a wonderful journey.
It's extremely interesting how sometimes the journey becomes a destination, and there's always a difference between the whole process of traveling somewhere and the point of reaching there. But both your stories are about both the journey and the destination. But one thing we've left out in this conversation is the food, because in this book, one of the things that hasn't still got flattened out around the world is food tastes. And that is one of the travel writers' favorite subjects. Though of course they've managed to homogenize that also. And wherever you go in India, you get chana bhaturas, or you get butter chicken or whatever. But in this book, Wendell wrote an absolutely wonderful essay on the Goan cuisine. You know, he comes from Goa, and all along the coast, the Konkan coast, there are many different flavors. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the flavors that you wrote about. If you wanted, you could read a little passage, or if you wanted, you could tell us about it.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, before I get down to that, Namita, thank you for making me write about this book. You know, sometimes you get somebody who calls up and says, can you write about XYZ topic? Satya Saran has asked me to do that recently. And you don't really think that you would write about that topic. My chapter in the book is called Trailing the Tongue. And it was always in my mind, and I hope I can achieve it at some time, to write about the ancient Konkan coast, because everybody can write about a state, excuse me, Rajasthan, I'm taking your thunder. We have to look at the Konkan coast, because these states didn't exist before that. The whole coast included from Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and part of which is now Kerala. So I went about the entire coast trailing the language, because I could hear Konkani being spoken in these various places, right from the north of Maharashtra down to Kerala. And I could identify certain ingredients that stayed common all through. And it was this that made me think about souring agents, how people would use, you know, tamarind or kokum instead of using vinegar or, you know, other souring agents. So I went through the entire process, which is in the chapter, and I'd like you to read it. And I think that fascinated me a lot, and I spent about maybe 20 days actually putting that small chapter together. And you find these stories, in the end, I feel, if you are a writer, you find the stories in the most unusual places. Your Majesty, I went day before yesterday I was invited to the Folk Heritage Museum restaurant. And I recommend that you all go there to eat. Because the lady told me that she was some lieutenant colonel in the police, I think. Yes. And and we got served this meal that was so wonderful. Everything from the regular momos to whatever, but it was the conversation that I had with her. She told me that she made dishes using rhododendron flowers. She would make a paste out of it and how she made these dishes. So I immediately said, okay, I have a story here. And I immediately began to click photographs, take more information, and it's going to appear in upper crust. And it was something that just happens by chance. As you know, as writers, we find the story or the story finds us.
But that's really the joy of literary tourism, because our friend Wendell came here 2 years ago to attend one edition of the Mountain Echoes Festival. And this year, he's kindly stepped in today to be in this session. But he's come on his own as a tourist and to spread the word. And the more deep you go, the better he'll understand it. So that the cuisine, the ideas, the food, the fabrics, these ideas will get across. And I'm really fascinated by what you said, but also what you said about the Konkan coast as a sweep. And you know, I feel the same way about the Himalayas, because these Himalayas, we tend to think of them as Pakistan or India or the Hindu Kush, but actually it's one long range of the tallest mountains in the world. And Bhutan is at the center of it. And Bhutan is the one country that has the privilege of maintaining its culture and its environment the most successfully. So I really think of our mountain echoes as an example to the rest of the Himalayan states on how to understand and preserve the essence of Himalayan, well, not only culture, but also food culture. And we've had a few food sessions here, so I'd like you, I can see, Wendell, you want to say something.
No, I was just remembering that I opened the chapter by, I was in the Alfonso mango groves in Ratnagiri, and I heard this Konkani being spoken on the wind of that wonderful mango perfume. Yes, and I know this gentleman was talking about plucking the mango, and he was saying te ang karungai and he went on, and suddenly I turned around and I said, "You speak Konkani?" He said, "Yes, because at one time this region was part of Konkan." Then another strange thing happened. I asked him, because of the Konkan coast people, we have a lot of similar words. The only words that are not similar, which I couldn't follow, were the commercial words, because since they were trading with people, they had to learn the local word for the weight of a mango or the basket or things like that. So those I couldn't understand. I said, "What company are you talking?" That's when she comes into the picture, because he said, "I'm speaking Chintapagni Konkani." And when I wrote the word to Namita, she said, "Well, my husband comes from that area, and he is a Chintapagni Brahmin." So, I mean, this is like a constant series of surprises, which is so wonderful in our genre of, enjoying the world while traveling and writing about it.
Yeah, indeed, Konkani is one of the languages which has 4 scripts, as I'm told.
5, I think.
5, yes.
Because even the Arabs that came to Goa when they traded, they also wrote Konkani in the Arabic script. We have it in Kannada, we have it in
English, Marathi. And so this is really what travel, the essence of travel writing happens. When you travel, these borders of them and us get broken down. And it becomes sort of, you want to recognize your own culture in the other. And I was here earlier with my cousin Pushpesh Pant, who is a very accomplished food writer. He was obsessed by how much of the Himalayan food along the trade routes would have been similar. And there's so many things which sometimes I eat here. And I think, I know this food. So if you could tell us a little about the cuisine of this one.
I would like to share with you the cuisine, very special cuisine that I had the pleasure of having in the course of my travels. This is in the region of Kent, which is actually speaking quite remote. And also, this travel of mine took 2 weeks from the starting point to the exit point. And all along the way, while eating with the people, they gave me their local cuisine. And I was so happy that they had about 36 different kinds of foods which they prepared for me, and they all came from the forest. So its roots and tubers and plants, fruits from the forest. And originally, the people living in these areas, they were so isolated. In times when there was food scarcity, meaning when the crops were eaten and there was this lull, they had to survive on foods from the forest. So they prepared it in many, many ways, and they were really delicious. And as Wendell just spoke, some of them you can sample at the Folk Heritage Restaurant.
So next time we'll certainly do something around that itself. But I was talking to friends like to Lily and people, and I was wondering whether you're losing some of the old food habits around here. Are you, like in India, the old foods are getting replaced by more standardized seeds and methods of agriculture? Is that happening here as well? Or is there still a tendency?
It is happening here. Food habits are changing. There are many restaurants and cafes that offer all sorts of cuisine. But nevertheless, the typical Bhutanese family, they still have our traditional fare on a daily basis. So I think we're still maintaining that, as well as having the option to eat outside.
And it's really healthy and organic and strong and beautiful food, isn't it?
It's very spicy, but it's good.
So I was, yeah, go ahead, Wendell.
I think, Nancy, you will also agree that the more that we travel, not just about food, but the more you travel, the more you feel that all people are one people in the end of it all. I was this morning at the 7th century Zhong, which is about 3 kilometers from the city. And I was looking, I think this is a traveler's eye, or maybe it's my design eye. I was looking at the flooring, and the flooring in all the other places and temples that I've seen were kind of, square tiles put one against each other. In this particular Zong, the tiles were put where the stones were cut at an angle. So it wasn't like one stone, but they were in L shape, they were in T shape. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, this is how the, Machu Picchu and those old Inca stones were put together because of the earthquakes, because it would not juggle, they would not crack. And I was saying, where is Bhutan and where is Machu Picchu? And still there is this connect that keeps happening, whether it's pyramids or whether it is, conical forms or circular forms in architecture. But there is a commonality in the end, and I find at least, that everywhere you go you meet people, and we are all one people in the end.
Indeed. And the best ideas travel and get transformed and become even better ideas. I was wondering, it might be, rather than just close up, have questions in the end when it gets a bit. I was thinking maybe we could have just 2 questions and then have a quick reading from both of them if there's time. So, maybe, anyway, maybe we can have some questions.
Questions are nice. Books you can read.
Yeah. Are there any questions? Anybody wants to talk about travel? Yes, my dear. We'll get a mic to you, and do give us your name as well.
Yes. Hi, I'm Deepti. I'm a travel writer. I recently did the Drupal trek. I just got back from there yesterday, and the guides were telling me that our form of dressing. For example, when we went for the Tiger monastery, they are expected to wear your traditional costume, but during the trek, it's okay if it was not. So I like that balance in that freedom that's given. But the only question that I had was that a lot of people don't know about Bhutan beyond Tiger Nest, Thimphu, Paro. They don't know about the treks. So is there a way in which maybe you're going to promote it?
Yes, the Tourism Council of Bhutan is promoting all our parts We have eco-tourism, we have tourism for bird watching, cultural tours, and recently there is going to be, in the future, immediate future, there's going to be a race called the King's Challenge. And this King's Challenge, it's going to be one of the toughest, very toughest races in the world. It will take you right up to Lunana, which is the highest point, actually the highest inhabited village in Bhutan. And it will take you right down into the Punta Valley. And also kayaking, on our very, very turbulent waters, rivers. So this also is being promoted. So all our parts, all our, let's say, the parts that you spoke about, we also have the Snowman's Trek, which is the toughest, again, in the world. And I personally undertook it. So, so now everybody knows, and please pass the word.
Yeah. When is this the King's Challenge, if I may?
It's going to be scheduled, I think, sometime in September.
Okay.
But you can always recheck.
Okay, thanks.
We have already heard from you, Your Royal Highness, about how your mode of travel by foot influences what you experience. But I would like to ask Wendell. Wendell, you fly, you take cruises, you take trains. So, in the journey, what are the different impressions, and which mode of travel has been the richest by that, in getting your impressions while you travel, not the destination, not the cities you visit, but just the journey?
Well, I'd just like to add on to what the lady was asking earlier about. I found, first of all, that with internet all over the world, you have these various groups of people. So trekkers, I'm sure, have their own group. Like, I was surprised to find an angling club in Goa because of a person in London who wanted to go angling and wrote and said, "Can I go angling?" And I said, "I don't think there's angling." He said, "No, there's a club, these anglers." But going to Satya's question, I think one of the great things about traveling is that you meet people, or like-minded people, who say, "Oh, have you gone to this place in New Zealand? Have you gone to this bay?" And I'll say, "No, I haven't," and then I add it to the list. I think that's one of the exciting things about traveling, is that you come to meet people who describe in person and say, it takes so many days, it costs this much, you can stay here, you can stay there. And what I enjoy now, I was not a Facebook person or a Twitter person, but now I find, so since I arrived in Bhutan, I've been posting photographs, and I'm quite sure Your Majesty will be very happy to say all my friends are going to come to Bhutan, because they're saying, when can we come, which is the best time, what do we eat? And I think that for me, that traveling is now become a very different mode. It's not only by a cruise liner or by a train journey. I think even walking in my own village in Kolwal, I really enjoy it. I see so many birds, I see the fruit coming through the trees. And I think the journey is very personal on one level, but for the most part, it's completely shared with everyone that is around.
If I could add to that, it's like that this famous poem by T.S. Eliot that says, "To return where we began and see the place for the first time." And that's what real travel is about. It enriches you, it sharpens your senses, so when you return to the place where you grew up so lazily, you appreciate it at a completely different level. But there was, in this book, I'm not plugging the book, I'm just telling you about it. There's two lovely essays in it. One is about, how travel has become the sameness of travel. There's a lovely essay in it about visa photographs, and how all of us, when we have our, not royal majesties, but when we have our commoners' photographs taken, the way they scrunch and everybody looks the same. And so the experience of the visa photograph. And Adrena Kala wrote an absolutely wonderful essay about being patted down in JFK airport. So it's about the traumas of travel, because the times we live in, the actual process of traveling sometimes becomes a bit exhausting. Emotionally, barriers, visas, all these things. they are not meant for human beings to exchange space with each other. I just went to Pakistan, and crossing the Wagah border itself is such a experience, both in shared humanity and in barbed wire. Are there any more questions? We have had there's a question there.
Suggestion, Bhutan is such a beautiful place.
Take the mic, please, and introduce yourself, my dear.
Just a suggestion.
No, if you could
I'm traveling from Patna to attend the mountain echoes, and just a suggestion, I wish there were more flights coming into Bhutan, because it was the most difficult getting a flight to come for the mountain echoes. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
I'm very sorry about that, but then we have increased our flights because a new airline, the Bhutan Airlines, have introduced their services, and you can get in from Bagdogra, and then we have the group care. But nevertheless, I know that it is a problem. I would like to advise you to book ahead.
Said like a true pro.
No, Majesty, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's wonderful that we have the isolation of Bhutan. I wish we had the same in Goa. We are overrun by tourists. I mean, we are 1.4 million, but in the main season between Christmas and New Year, I think we go to something like I don't know how many million, and then everything gets blocked. So I'm quite happy with this status quo.
I would also like to share with you one thing. Traveling, for instance, I went to Arunachal Pradesh. This was in 2005, and I walked to Arunachal Pradesh from Bhutan. So I suggest walking also.
Walking is a great. But of course, she comes from Patna, and they run the wonderful Patna festival, and there is so much interaction between both here and.
This morning at the petrol pump, just outside Thimphu, I saw a group of maybe 25 or 30 bikers. They were all on Enfield bikes and obviously came to Bhutan from India. And I asked our guide, I said, where do they cross the border? And he told me the name. So I don't think you just need to fly in. You can walk in, quite literally.
But with the school vacations, we have limited time. With the school vacations, the travel is also a learning process for the children.
No, we got the point.
I understand.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments or anything? We have a few minutes left. I have lots of questions for both of you, and which I'm sure the audience. There's a yes, please. Here is somebody who I met. That was the Patna Literature Festival, and here is somebody I met at the Lahore Literature Festival. Gavin, do get out and announce yourself.
My name is Gavin Francis. I just wanted to ask Her Majesty a little bit about travel routes in Bhutan that are pilgrimage routes, traditional pilgrimage routes, and if there are traditional pilgrimage routes and where they go.
The pilgrimage routes start in Paro, where you land. Paro has, of course, the iconic Taksang, but also many sacred temples. And then Thimphu too. We have the most beautiful ancient historical monasteries of Chele and Dangu. It's very close by. And moving on, Punakha Valley. Now, Punakha Valley is the old capital of Bhutan. And the dzong there, it's absolutely the most beautiful. You haven't been there, have you? It's a beautiful dzong, and it was built by the founder of the nation state of Bhutan, Shabdung, as we refer to him. And it is built in between two rivers. Keeping in mind, of course, the security there. And then you move onward to the east. Tongsa is also very beautiful. It has the most majestic dzong. And Punta has probably one of the largest number of ancient temples and treasures hidden in different nooks of different valleys in Bhutan. So if you have the time, I think in Bhutan, Bhutan is actually a treasure trove of so many spiritual sites that you may want to visit.
I think Her Majesty has been very modest of talking about Puraka without saying you have to pass through Lokchula, where she has built how many? 108 stupas. A wonderful sight indeed to see.
So I think we are about to close now. There's a last question there, please.
Yeah. No, Ajit Pradhan, I'm from Patna. I just remembered a couplet you talking about travel destination. So we were traveling down from Patna, sort of got lost on the way. So I remembered this beautiful couplet which I couldn't resist sharing with you all. It's in Urdu. I'm sure one of you can translate it. Khuda kare, meri manzil mujhe kisi surat na mile. I pray to God that I should never reach my destination. Badi mushkil se manaya hai apne ab saath chalne ko. It's been a while, I've really taken pains to ask her to travel with me. Thank you.
The journey and the destination. I think there is one more question, is there time? A 1 minute question and a 1 minute answer. Where's Mike, please? Do give us your name, please.
Good afternoon, everyone here. My name is Namita and I'm from Bhutan GNH. Actually, like the Zohana Vishwela Association, I'm from organization having a GNH name in the Bhutan. Speaking Zonka, I'm not doing the justice. I'm building a Katule, the Tarinalu, Nuashinachin Dodolo, Nakatu, Joshun Neba, Natiki, Dosusi Nalu, Lamton Namidelu, then Chala, Kachira Zidibiru, Zimisiki Dunda, National Legenda Medu Nachikatule, Katikaso bomb musician on this machine. I'm having no question, but I'm just thanking Her Majesty for considering about her people, her country, and the youths, especially the youths. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was the perfect note on which to end. And thank you for being a most indulgent audience in the post-lunch session, which sometimes we call the graveyard shift, because after lunch there's a sort of tendency to nod off. But you go on siesta time, indeed. Thank you very, very much, everybody.